Texas joining us now. Mr. Senator, if Republicans win the House and the Senate in November, can you really change course on the border?
Well, we can start changing course. Listen, what has happened under Joe Biden and the border is absolute chaos. 4.4 million people have crossed illegally under Joe Biden. I spent a lot of time down on the southern border. It has never been remotely this bad. And the volume of human suffering, we're seeing children being assaulted by human traffickers. We're seeing women being sexually assaulted. We're seeing drugs. 100,000 people last year died of fentanyl overdoses because of the drugs flooding into this country. And all of it is because Joe Biden and this administration refuses to enforce the law. You're showing images of people coming here illegally. They turn themselves in to the Border Patrol agents, and Biden turns around and lets them go. That's why they're coming, because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats won't enforce the law. The good news, Stuart, is we're going to have an election in 2 weeks. I think we're going to see a red wave. I think Republicans are going to take the House. I think we're going to take the Senate. That means next year we're going to begin to have real oversight, real hearings with subpoenas. I think we should impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the Secretary of Homeland Security. I think we should defund the 87,000 new IRS agents that the Democrats just passed into law, and we ought to put that money into securing the border. But it's going to be a fight, because Biden and the Democrats will continue to refuse the law, and we need to use the powers of Congress to fight back and try to force them to do so.
Senator, protesters popping up all across the globe, throwing food on iconic paintings, pouring milk on supermarket floors, and they interrupted you on The View yesterday. Forgive me, Senator, but I got to run this again. Roll that tape.
Inflation has one cause and one cause only. Inflation in the United States has one cause and one cause only.
We do cover climate here, guys. We do cover climate. Ladies,
excuse us. Let us do our job. Let us do our job. We hear what you have to say, but you got to go.
They're accusing us of not covering climate change, and we do that almost.
Well, at least they didn't throw tomatoes.
I'm really glad you don't have a Van Gogh on the wall. For the vast majority of Americans, the answer is no.
Mr. Senator, I have a strange question. They went to a commercial break after this fracas, and you were still sitting on the set. What was the conversation on the set after this?
Oh, look, the hosts were embarrassed. They said in the history of The View, this had never happened before. We actually had two sets of protesters that interrupted, began screaming and cursing. But, you know, look, listen, the left right now, they're angry, and we're at a time where our nation is screaming at each other. But I'll tell you, the reason I went on The View is I think conservatives, we need to do a much better job reaching out to a broader audience. I think we need to be talking to young people and Hispanics and African Americans and suburban moms who are paying the price for these failed policies. And I went on yesterday because today I've got a brand new book that's come out. The book is called Justice Corrupted, how the left has weaponized our legal system. And it is a book that exposes how Barack Obama and Joe Biden have turned the Department of Justice and the FBI and the IRS and the machinery of the federal government into a politicized weapon to target their enemies. And I think it's profoundly dangerous.
Do you think what you're calling the weaponization of the legal system, does that present a threat to democracy in the way that the left thinks that January the 6th and voting rights are a threat to democracy?
So it does, and it's fundamentally designed to do so. This book explains how when the government is used as a tool to target your enemies, that it ultimately undermines democracy. And it was interesting in The View, Whoopi Goldberg came at me, and she's obsessed, as everyone in the leftist media is, with January 6th. And she said, you Republicans, you're violent and you engage in violence, and our side never does that. And Stuart, I actually had to laugh. I said, you know, did you miss
Antifa? An
entire year of Antifa riots, cities burning? And Whoopi looks at me completely confused and says, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what an Antifa riot is. That's what their viewers are seeing, is just propaganda.
I'm glad you exposed it, Mr. Senator, and I'm glad you came on our show this morning. Great to have you with us.
Well,
so, we'll see you
let me
again
encourage
soon.
folks, buy the book. It's useful. It'll tell you what's happening.
10% to me if you sell a lot of books, but that's just another story. He put his thumbs up. Thank you, Senator. We'll see you again real soon. Thanks, sir.